Welcome friends to another r/MaliciousCompliance video. So I was checking out my statistics and it turns out that only one of you guys aren't subscribed. So if you don't want to be that one holdout, make sure to hit the like and subscribe buttons down below. That said, our first story of the day is by Dita Von Teets. I'm just doing what you told me. A few years ago, I started working for a buffet-style restaurant that's pretty well known, at least in the Midwest area. The job itself was horrible, as most food industry jobs are, but I was grateful for the work. And for my friend who had gotten me the job there as a hostess, so I tried to put in actual effort. A few months into the job, I found out that basically all of the managers were doing shady things like doing drugs during their shifts and nodding off at their desks, sleeping with teenage waitresses and giving them more hours than the rest of the staff, cutting people's hours down to 5 a week if they complained about anything, all of the horrible things you hear of happening in management. I went in, put on a smile, and did my job as best as I could. The restaurant itself was going through some hard times, so one day the big guy in charge, I think a district manager, came in for a staff meeting to basically rip all of us a new one and put all of the blame of the bad reviews and low sales on the waitstaff and me, the hostess. I was told I needed to present myself more confidently by wearing makeup and taking more care of my appearance, which sent me off because first and foremost, I'm a feminist and that was sexist as heck, but also, I was confident in myself and my appearance. But it's hard to keep a smile when I'm constantly dealing with people who are angry over outrageous meal prices that were advertised as being much lower, or people angry over their disgusting food. I also pointed out to him that I've worked in restaurants my entire life, and I'd applied to be a cook, not a hostess, and felt I was way more qualified to be back in the kitchen, but I was placed as a hostess because they needed to fill that spot quickly after their last one quit. So he told me that on my next shift, I could clock into the bakery section and work there instead. I was pretty excited for this because I love to cook and bake, and I would have the entire kitchen to myself in that section, and I would be getting a small pay raise. Seemed like a pretty sweet deal all around, right? So, a few days pass, my next shift approaches, and I go in early just to get a better feel for the kitchen and the recipes I needed to make. It's all super basic stuff: banana pudding, bread pudding, carrot cakes. Nothing too hard or fancy. I find out that I'm going to be trained that night by one of the assistant managers who I had previously gotten into a little argument with because he shamed me in front of a line of customers for not wearing an Oxford cotton shirt to work, which I didn't even know was a rule and no one had ever told me otherwise, as I had been there for months at that point. I pulled him aside after my shift that night to tell him I didn't appreciate him doing that in front of customers. And besides, the type of shirt they expected me to buy was expensive, and they wanted me to have at least 3 of them, which would have been at least half my paycheck, to be honest. I was only there part-time, and since they weren't willing me to pay the wage I'd requested when I took the job, I wasn't able to afford to buy special shirts like that for work. It was bad enough they also forced everyone to order crappy non-slip work shoes through a company of their choosing, and it came out of our first paycheck. Between the shoes and the shirts, we're basically expected to fork over around $400 on gear just to work there for minimum wage. Ridiculous. So needless to say, him and I already didn't like each other very much, and I knew him training me was going to be a real bad time. But I thought it was worth it for the position change. Anyways, I clock in and I'm told immediately that it's a very special night because they're having a huge promotion where kids eat for free, and it was expected to be extremely busy. I panic a little because the kids always go nuts for the bakery area, but I figure it'll be fine since I'm not alone on my first night. The night goes pretty smoothly at first, but then it happened. We ran out of strawberries for the chocolate fountain, and I needed to run to the cooler to refill the pan. Only when I get the box of strawberries out of the fridge, I noticed every single one of them, all 3 boxes, were covered in spots of white fuzzy mold. So I start taking all 3 boxes out to the dumpster, and that's when the assistant manager stopped me, completely pissed off, and screamed, "What are you doing?" Stunned, I explained that they're all moldy, so I'm throwing them out real quick. He gets even more pissed, takes the boxes from my hands, and just tells me to follow him. We go back into the kitchen, in the way back part away from the dining area so no one can see us, and he starts showing me how they just use the spray nozzle on the sink to power wash the mold off of the strawberries. My heart literally sank to my stomach. I asked if this was something they do a lot, and he said yes, and they're still good to eat and not to worry about it. I told him I wasn't comfortable knowingly serving moldy strawberries to children, and I wasn't gonna do it. So he snapped at me and told me to just go back to the hostess station and start seating people. I'm pretty pissed, but it's already pretty chaotic in the dining area, so I did as I was told, the whole time planning the phone call I was going to make to the health department later, and what I was going to write in my 2 weeks notice. Not even 10 minutes later, a customer came up to me with a bowl full of strawberries, complaining she had found mold on them and her child almost ate it. Obviously, I feel horrible, of course, and start trying to apologize to her, while waving the assistant manager over to talk to her because she asked to speak with one. He comes over, sees the strawberries, and I just go, "She found mold on her son's strawberries and would like a refund." Right away, he's all smiles and sincerity, apologizing to her, and walking her over to my cash register to give her money back. When I hear him tell her, "Our bakery cook is still in training, so I'll make sure I bring this to her attention and correct it." And that's when I snapped. I walked right up to them and said, with the most confused look I could manage, "I thought you told me to just wash the mold off and they would be fine. I'm just doing what you told me." Words cannot even begin to describe the look of sheer bewilderment on both of their faces. She yells first, "Are you kidding?" I knew I was already getting fired at that point, so I start gathering my things from under the counter and clocking out while listening to him try to defuse the situation, apologizing, telling her I misunderstood him. Meanwhile, my heartbeat is ringing in my ears and I'm about to have a full-blown panic attack because I'd never walked out on a job before, so I wasn't able to pay much attention to what all he was telling her. But it was obvious he was just trying to keep her quiet so the rest of the dining room didn't hear what was happening. While that's happening, I go to the back to grab my coat from the staff closet and snuck into the cooler to take pics of the moldy strawberries so I could send it to the health department. I made that report anonymously, honestly because I didn't want my friend who had gotten me the job to possibly face repercussions, and figured maybe they would assume it was the customer who reported them. I got my stuff and snuck out the back door so people wouldn't see me in tears having a panic attack, and went home. Later, my friend called me to tell me that they shut down the whole chocolate fountain for the rest of the night and ended up having to refund a ton of meals because the lady warned everyone around her not to let their kids eat the strawberries. And of course, many already had. Apparently, it was a disaster, and I'm kinda sad I missed watching him have to hand out all those refunds on such an important night. A week later, I go in one morning to pick up my final paycheck, and guess who's the only manager on site? Of course, he was a huge jerk about having to do anything for me, and didn't think it was funny when I asked how he still had a job at all. He made me wait at the front counter for over an hour because he was having trouble getting into the safe to get my check, which worked out perfectly for me because in walked the big guy in charge, and I'm like, okay, I'm telling him what happened. So I walk up to him and said hello and everything, and he asked how I was enjoying the bakery, and I was like, funny you should ask, and told him the entire story. The new hostess, who was a previous waitress who had also worked that night, was also at the front counter backing up everything I said, and he just couldn't believe it. I almost showed him the photos of the strawberries, but honestly, I didn't want a lawsuit or anything, so I was glad my coworker was there to back me up. I apologized to him for walking out, and he offered me the position back. But honestly, that was just way too much drama for me and not enough pay, and I'd already found something better anyways. So I declined and said I just wanted my last paycheck that I'd been waiting on for over an hour at that point. He went and got my paycheck for me, apologized again, and assured me that he was going to talk with the assistant manager. I didn't think anything would come of it, but apparently he actually did get fired after their talk because someone from the HR department reached out to me to discuss everything. She told me that they know that he tried to pin the entire thing on me, but another cook came forward and admitted that he was forced to serve moldy food as well. So they were bringing on an entire change in management. I think she basically just wanted to make sure there wasn't any bad blood or that I wasn't going to try to sue them or something. I told her I just wanted to be done with it, and that was that. They closed down a month or two later, but I can't imagine why. If you found yourself in a situation where your manager said, you either serve this expired moldy food or you're out of a job and you probably need that money, would you rather go through with it or would you rather just up and walk out right there? Let me know what you would do in the comments. And our final story of the day is by Smoky Cat, Malicious Almost Paid Holiday Compliance. This was decades ago. I worked in IT for a small company who generally meant well, but was not full of critical thinkers. It was cozy and not particularly challenging, which suited me at the time. HR, led by a stereotypical ditzy blonde lady, got on an inclusivity kick and decided that in the upcoming year, you could select different paid holidays depending on what religion you observed. Atheists would get the Christian holidays, but if you were Muslim or Jewish or whatever, you could select your most important religious holidays as time off. Just let HR know what those days were. No, you couldn't pick and choose what days you wanted off. They had to come from a published list of actual religious holidays. It would all even out, was what I was assured. Anyone see anything wrong with this besides the potential discrimination issues? As an IT person, I was the one who would have to implement it in their old, odd payroll system. I didn't want to. It would be a nightmare. But not wanting to make too many waves, I just asked about people who change religion. They said it wouldn't be a problem. Again, it would all even out. I had a bad habit of asking questions that turned out to make some people look foolish, and didn't want to get a reputation as a naysayer, so I just said, okay boss, I'll look into what it'll take. Next, I found a calendar listing all religious holidays, and I put in a series of holiday requests like this. January 6th, Feast of the Epiphany. I'll be off because I'm a Western Christian. This is the day the three wise men visited baby Jesus, a very holy day. But the next day, I'm converting to Coptic. January 7th, Coptic Orthodox Christmas. I'll be off because this is the date that Coptic Christians celebrate Jesus' birth in the Julian calendar. I will then have a couple days of praising our newborn Lord and Savior before seeking enlightenment. I'm converting to Buddhist. January 10th, Bodhi Day. I'll be off meditating. This day celebrates the Buddha's enlightenment. It's celebrated by Mahayana Buddhists. This will be peaceful for a couple off days, but then I'll bring out the icons and incense because now I'm Orthodox Christian. Because January 14th is the Orthodox New Year. It went on and on. I listed holidays that I, as a new convert, had to devoutly celebrate. I listed a lot of religions and only their important days like January 16th, birthday of Guru Gobind Singh's birthday. I'll be a Sikh and my turban should have arrived by then. February 1st, Imbolc, the halfway point between the winter solstice and spring equinox in the pagan and Wiccan calendars. I think I'll try to find a laurel wreath. February 17th, Tu Bishvat, the New Year's of trees in the Jewish faith. February 25th, Festival of Ayami Ha, a multiple-day festival in the Baha'i faith, etc., for the whole year. In my religious holiday request, I had about 4 conversions and resultant religious holidays a month, and every holiday was legitimate and important to the many religions that I said I would be joining in the next year. I think I ended up with 45 days total, plus my 2 weeks vacation. The ditzy blonde HR lady didn't know what to think, and she wasn't sure if I was serious or not. We were in separate buildings and she didn't call me or walk over to discuss things informally. 3 separate meetings were scheduled, but each was canceled before they happened. Word of my plan got around too, and some devout people thought it blasphemous, but others were considering joining me on my spiritual quest for more paid time off. If she'd gone through with her plan, I'd have gone through with mine. But things changed and the HR plan was converted to more mundane, employee-selectable, floating holidays before I had to program this nightmare in the HR system, and before I got to seek enlightenment and salvation by doing a world religion tour from the lazy comfort of my couch. I think the greatest thing is, if this took place in the US, this HR person would probably be tiptoeing around some pretty serious things if they tried to limit or restrict OP based on what they declare is their religion or what they're converting to or anything like that. Maybe that alone made them realize that this overall is just a terrible idea. But with that being said, that's all the time we have for today. So of both of these stories that I've read today, which was your favorite and why? Let me know in the comments down below. And if you haven't yet, if you could like and subscribe, that would mean a lot to me. Whatever you do, whether it's liking, subscribing, turning notifications on, all of it helps grow this channel and I appreciate the heck out of it. So until next time, I'll see you all tomorrow with some more stories.